Can a player be fascinating and overlooked at the same time? Oh, yes. And we've got one for you, Nebraska. That's next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday, here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. A couple things to catch up on as we go on throughout the show today, but we're going to dive right into our Bowl of Fascination. Now, there are some accusations of us, kind of weighing the dice here or, rigging the bowl, because this one comes up at a pretty, appropriate time. We're going to talk today about Demetrius Bell, who just so happened to do a tweet yesterday of him catching a ball in the end zone and working out and all that stuff. And he was in our Bowl of Fascination, but now he's been plucked out today.
It's just funny how that works.
Yeah,
that somebody can be in the news or on social media, creating a stir, getting people excited, and then the next day we pull them out of the bowl.
Yeah, we cannot comment on the allegations of loading the dice or whatever it might be. So let's just move on from that issue. So Demetrius Bell is our guy today, and I think there's a lot of fascination specifically at his position, but for a guy who hasn't done much, but always pops up in those conversations about, hey, kind of watch out for this guy. It's been mentioned a couple times offhand by Matt Rhule, it wasn't specifically asked about him or anything like that. He just kind of brought him up on his own. I feel like this is a pretty interesting guy as we head into camp, and it's a big camp for him. That's for sure.
So there are two pictures that Demetrius Bell posted on social media Tuesday. One on the right, if you check it out at his Twitter handle, which is DB1_10. On the right, there is a picture from practice, which we're talking about practice, which is like at least a year old because, well, maybe not a full year. It's sometime the last season. He's wearing a green jersey because he's coming back from injury. So Demetrius Bell was hurt in the spring game of 2024. And it was an injury that limited him last season and really derailed the progress that we expected him to make coming out of his true freshman season in 2023 when he was very highly regarded within the Nebraska program. So there's that photo. And then there is what I believe to be a new photo on the left. And in that photo, you see somebody who looks quite a bit different from the receiver catching a pass on the right. Demetrius Bell has gotten big, folks. Like, he is in the weight room in this shot. And I think what he's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Connor, I don't know what the little top with the hourglass means. He's like moving up. That was in his tweet. I'm not sure if that can be, maybe somebody can translate that for me. But I basically think it means that he's on the rise, and he's saying, hey, look, I'm here, I'm on the rise, and look how big I've gotten in this whole rehab period. It will have been a long time. Well, we've never seen Demetrius Bell in a situation where he's been fully ready to go and healthy in this program. So that time's coming, and we should probably be talking about him among the Nebraska receivers.
Yeah, I think so. Although, like,
you're a skeptic.
I'm not a skeptic on him getting bigger or stronger or, rising or whatever it might be. Like, that obviously should be happening with him, but it's just really difficult for me to to really expect anything of a guy who's coming off of a significant injury and doesn't have any catches. It's like, I guess that's where I go. And as far as the post is concerned, I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary in terms of a player just, wanting to, keep it at the top of the mind, I suppose, a little bit. And I do, but Nebraska's wide receiver position is a spot that we've talked about, and I think everybody sort of glosses over because they have a few guys there who have produced in college before, and they do, and those guys have. But at the same time, I would mention that it's not particularly deep as far like I think there is some opportunity for playing time among guys who aren't Dane Key and Ja'Cory Barney and Isaiah Hunter. There's plenty more snaps to go around, I think, after that. And some young guys are really going to be in the mix there. And so I would expect him to be there. What kind of role does he play for Nebraska this year? I would say not particularly a significant one, but it's good that you might have another option there, it seems.
I kind of disagree. I think he could play a significant role for Nebraska on offense in 2025. I think if he had stayed on...
What's significant?
I think he can be a starter at some point in the season. I think he can be among Nebraska's top 3 to 4 in terms of his catches. And I think he's somebody who could be used in multiple ways in the run game and the pass game. And possibly, this is if he's back. And I think what he's saying is I'm back. Like, look at me physically. Yeah. I'm beyond where I was in 2024 coming off of a redshirt season. And if that turns out to be true, which I don't have any reason to believe that it isn't, I haven't heard anything that would lead me to think that Demetrius Bell lost something from the knee surgery. Guys come back from this, especially when they've been out for as long as he has. Like if this was 2025, like he hurt that a year and a half ago almost. So I think he's ready to be fully 100%. And if he's the player that they saw in the fall of 23, plus you've added in the time in the weight room to get better, the sky is the limit for him. Like there was talk so to finish my thought, I think he could lead the Nebraska receiving corps in touchdowns. How about that? Like if that happened, if you get to November and he scored 8 touchdowns, and that's more than Ja'Cory Barney, Cortez Mills, Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter, I wouldn't be shocked if he's at the top there. Does he get the most targets?
I would be shocked. That would shock me.
No. Does he get the most targets? Probably not. Does he have the highest yards per catch? Is he the most explosive? Yes. Even with Barney and Mills, wouldn't shock me at all, because I heard Matt Rhule say it after his first season, that there were times in Demetrius Bell's freshman year while he redshirted and played scout team that he was the best player on the field. And I'm not talking about the best player on the scout team, the best player on the football field. So when you hear that, it's intriguing. I'm sorry. It's fascinating to ponder what he might be 2 years later. The injury should be in the past now. And physically what he showed yesterday in that social media post is impressive.
I'll admit it. He's a guy who keeps, who just keeps popping up, amongst his peers or amongst coaches for sure. Just like we talked about before, it's not like people are asking about him specifically, and we don't get much access around this time of year, but he is a name that just always seems to pop up whenever anyone talks about whether it's the wide receiver room or the offense in general. So I do think there's a bunch of guys in that category of, like I said, the non-big 3 receivers, with Hunter, Key, and Barney, who could really step up. But as of right now, I would just put him into a different bowl, like a bowl with everybody else. The
bowl of unknown.
The bowl of unknown, yeah. And I think the great thing about that bowl is that it's a really high ceiling. I think there's some guys in there who could really, really play and definitely will be counted on by Nebraska to have serious production down the line. But right now it's just hard to know because like combined through all of them, there's not very many catches or targets there.
I'll say he scores a touchdown of 50 plus yards in the first 2 games.
Wow.
And yeah, he'll have a catch or a run in excess of 50 plus yards against either Cincinnati or Akron in the home opener. And we're going to be talking again on some Monday morning in September, or I guess the last day of August. No, it would be September because that game's on a Thursday. About Demetrius Bell, and we're gonna look back to this conversation and say, remember on July 16th when all of a sudden for the first time in 3 months we spent 10 minutes talking about Demetrius Bell. There's a reason for it, and you saw it out there with the way that he moved down the field after taking the ball. That's what I envision for him.
And I would say that you were right. Now, if he doesn't do anything doesn't do anything of note all season, I don't think we'll probably have a podcast at the end that is like, look, do you remember July 16th, the day after the MLB All-Star game when I was skeptical? We probably won't do that podcast. So no. I hope that he could be that kind of guy for Nebraska this year. That would be a huge boost.
I want to go a different direction, and we'll come back after the break and do this with Demetrius Bell, because I think he fits into a category of Nebraska football players that we're not talking about. And there's a reason we're not talking about him. And that's coming up after this.
But first, a word from our friends from the FanDuel Sportsbook, where summer sports are in full swing. Baseball, going to take a couple days off now after the All-Star break and headed to the unofficial second half of the season, even though most teams have played like almost 100 games by this point. There's baseball going to be available basically every night. There's going to be golf on the weekends. The Open Championship is this weekend. High-stakes soccer action, whatever it might be for you, FanDuel has got you covered. You're already following that action, so why not make it a little bit more exciting with FanDuel and a little bit more reason to follow every little thing that happens in the game, because that's the kind of options that FanDuel gives you, whether it be same game parlays, season long bets, overs and unders, or just your regular old spreads. You can jump into those any way you like on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or head to FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started.
Back on a Wednesday, Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. Reminder to get your mailbag questions in for Friday. We have a much anticipated mailbag show coming up on Friday because we will learn what happens with the map. The map perhaps is going to go fully international. I don't know. That's up to Nathan. I don't generally check the inbox until we get to Thursday and start putting that show together. We may have a new map waiting for us. Maybe we won't. Maybe there's going to be a revolt and we're going to be without maps for the rest of no, we're still going to have a map, but get your questions in lockedonneb@gmail.com. Got a couple that I saw early in the week that were already rolling in. So thanks for all your contributions. I'll admit, Connor, I'm dragging a little bit this morning. Was up early. There were storms overnight. And I was in front of my TV until around 11 o'clock. Yeah, it's late. That's late for me, but it's an opportunity to watch the All-Star game with my son sitting there on the couch. So, those moments, you don't get a lot of those in life. And we were having a good time, and the Royals started to impact the game. Like, it got exciting when the American League put the Royals in, and Bobby Witt started doing his thing, and Michael Garcia did his thing a little bit. And Chris Bubich did his thing and gave up a 3-run homer.
Yeah.
So
got excited for one team when Chris Bubich came in. Yeah.
Yeah. Estevez did his thing and put a bunch of runners on base and then got out of the jam, I think. So that's a normal 9th inning for people who haven't watched Kansas City all year. And then the game ended after 9 innings, and I thought it was going to extra innings. I think a lot of people thought it was going to extra innings. We remember the 1 year many seasons ago when the All-Star game ended after 9 innings and they just said, it's over. It's a tie.
Mm-hmm.
So now they have a swing off. Did you like the swing off, which was won by the National League because Kyle Schwarber is a home run hitting machine against batting practice pitchers?
It was great. I don't know why, somebody else didn't get picked in some of these slots. I felt like the NL maybe had the advantage.
Where was Aaron Judge
that they put up there?
Where was Bobby Witt Jr.?
So the other thing that was happening last night too. So no, I did not know about the swing off until literally the bottom of the 9th inning with 1 out, and I was like, "What happens if it ties? Does
I
it
don't
end?"
think the announcers knew either.
No,
the guys on Fox, they didn't know.
No, and he was. It was kind of clear that he was like getting it in his ear. He's like, "All right, well, okay, this is what's going to happen." And so they did that, and one thing that was also made clear on social media is that a lot of the starters, like, they've just left. They left the game. They went home, and that's why they didn't participate in the swing off. There was a couple guys you could have gone to instead of Jonathan Aranda from the
what
Rays.
Was that?
Yeah,
looked like he had warning track power. Like, couldn't even get it out of the park, even if he had a good swing. Like, if Bobby Witt had been in that third hole for the AL, I think they would have at least put the pressure on the National League and made Alonso hit. Maybe. And then he probably would have gone and won it. No, we could have had a swing off, walk off, which would have been nice. All right. Enough about
got to Alonso. Okay, I have one more. If Alonso would have been up, whether it was tied or he was down by 1, I mean, Atlanta hates that guy. Yeah, they would have booed the crap out of him. It would have been awesome.
Because he plays for the Mets. They would have been conflicted, but I think their hatred of him would have probably won out. Like, they would have. What would have been great is if he would have choked and not been able to get, like, he needed 1 home run to win it and he didn't do it. Oh, the fans would have been loving, hating on Pete Alonso. Okay. We continue our discussion and go back to this subject that we started with Demetrius Bell, because in addition to being fascinating as Nebraska heads towards preseason camp, now just 12 days away, the start, I think he's also, and we established this in the first segment, he's overlooked by a lot of people. Like, you're not thinking about Demetrius Bell right off the top when the Nebraska receivers come up. And it's understandable. He's coming back from injury. He's been on the team for 2 years. I think in the minds of a lot of people, it's a little bit of a surprise that Demetrius Bell is still here. And that I'm not saying anything about him. It's just the way that college football works. If you have a player who is highly regarded coming out of high school, was recruited by some SEC power programs, and then he goes 2 years for whatever the reason is, they choose to redshirt him as a freshman, and then he gets hurt. That's, in this case, the situation. You're usually looking at somebody who ends up going in the portal.
Yeah.
And the fact that he is around to start year 3 at Nebraska without having played, and he's not a local guy. Like with Thomas Fidone, okay, it wasn't surprising that he stayed at Nebraska to give it a shot and, ended up making a career of it and is now headed in the NFL. It is a little surprising for me with Demetrius Bell. So that's why I think he's overlooked, just because of the career path. And let's get some thoughts on maybe who else falls into this category of being overlooked to enter the 2025 season.
I know you got a list of guys here, and
go whichever direction you want.
Yeah, I came up with one that's sort of off the list a little bit, although it shouldn't, in my mind, it should not be off the beaten path, because it's one of the guys that Nebraska's taken to Big Ten Media Days, Henry Lutovsky. Nobody talks about.
He's overlooked.
Him. Yeah, nobody talks about. I mean, it's an overlooked in a different way because he's going to be a starter, and he's an offensive lineman, so you don't see.
I get it. Right. I agree.
Nobody talks about him, and it's still like, what do we do with that guy? What's he going to play? Where's he going to go? But if Nebraska feels strongly enough about him to bring him to an event like that, you feel like he's probably one of the leaders on the team. Like a captain type of guy. So. I think that's one that comes right off the top of my head. There's a bunch of them, honestly, that people don't talk about with this group this offseason.
So I put Marcos Davila on the list, and I get it. He's the number 3 quarterback. You're hopefully not going to get to a place where he's inserted into a pressure situation because you have Dylan Raiola, who is your horse, and then Jalen Gramstad if something happens. But, stranger things have happened, and you want to have a player there who is more than just a body, like someone who can come in and run the offense if you need it in a short period of time. If Nebraska has to go to Gramstad for a game this year because Dylan has a hamstring injury or whatever it might be, like that's not going to surprise anyone. That's more the norm with the way that things work in college football and just football in general. You have to go to a backup for a game a season, or in some cases quite a bit more. So that puts Marcos Davila, if that does in fact happen, into a position where he becomes really important. And I don't think people are talking about him. I think people are just like, oh, they got that transfer from Purdue, and what's that? Like, who's he? Looked pretty good in the Husker games, or even in the portions of practice that we were able to see, like a competent quarterback, a big body, somebody that I think they would feel good about if he has to go in and take some snaps.
Yeah. How about I'm looking at some names right now. When you think about the defensive line, who are the first couple of guys that come to your head? I mean, we talked a lot about Riley Van Poppel this offseason.
Elijah Judy,
Keona Davis. People talk about Williams, Winery, probably maybe more than he's going to actually produce.
He's like the opposite of overlooked at this point.
Right. Yeah. The complete opposite. So how about how about Cam Lenhart? A guy who
people take him for granted, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Was probably better in his freshman year than he was in his sophomore year. Played more, certainly, I think, in his freshman year than he did in his sophomore year. So I think taken for granted is a really good way to describe him. And then there was a lot of speaking of the defensive line, there was a lot of conversation about Jalen George when he transferred in. I haven't heard much since. I know that they kind of liked him at first, the transfer from East Tennessee State, Jalen George. So that's a guy for me that I'll be watching in the early days of camp just to see where they slot him.
Marcus Watson-Trent, another linebacker. There's a fair amount, I would say, of anticipation and hype around him because of the numbers that he put up at Georgia Southern. But I don't know that he's like, if you walk into a bar of Nebraska fans, if he's somebody that is like in the minds of people at this moment. That may change after one or two games. Mac Markway is another guy who I marked down here for the same kind of injury situation that you have with Demetrius Bell. Came in from LSU last year as a tight end transfer out of the blue and then was hurt before he could do anything. But he's supposed to be, at least physically, someone who should match up very well in the Big Ten. And then the last guy I put down was Tyler Kanak, who I think is going to find a role on this offensive line at a tackle spot. That he's going to position himself with how he continues to practice headed into the fall, and get himself in a spot where they need him at some point this year.
All right. Let's take a quick time out here. We'll come back, review a couple things that happened yesterday. SEC Media Days, day 2 went on. We're heading into day 3 today. And also Nebraska Day on SportsCenter last night and all that entailed after this. Yesterday at SEC Media Days, Kirby Smart, Hugh Freeze, Josh Heupel, Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian, the Texas head coach, walked out to Texas A&M's fight song. Somebody pressed the wrong button there. Not good. A lot of Arch Manning talk yesterday. Arch looking like a frat president doing his thing.
I saw that. Yeah, saw that.
He really, truly did, though.
I mean, he had everything down from like the shoes to the pants to the sport coat and like the way his hair was combed. It's you could have pulled him right out of like a I don't know, a movie with him playing that role.
No doubt. Like, yeah, it looked like he was about to go take his, like the pictures that they do, the stock photos that they put on the walls at the frat houses. Like he was about to go take that picture. So always something eventful at SEC Media Days. Today is Alabama. I think Kalen DeBoer is already talking at the time we're recording this. Florida, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma.
So how does that happen? That the Texas coach they play the Aggie War Hymn when the Texas A&M when the Texas coach comes out. Like if it had been the
I imagine the DJ is just looking at a bunch of files and like, or maybe, you know, it gets cut off. So it just says Texas, but it doesn't see the end of it where it says Texas A&M or something like that. And it's just, I would assume it's just a horrible, horrible mistake.
Oh, it's a pretty cool mistake, I think. Sark, if the clips that I saw are truly representative of how it was received, he acted like he didn't even know. Like he just went on and started and just powered right through to his opening monologue with no recognition of the fact that they just played the song to honor Texas's hated rival.
It was like he didn't even hear it. So kudos to Steve Sarkisian, who's always one of the best dressed guys at whatever event that he's going to.
What if at Big Ten Media Days next week, when Ryan Day walked out, they played "Hail to the Victors"?
Ooh. I think he would notice.
I think he would notice. Yes, I think he might.
I think he would notice. I don't think there would be any like, no, I don't think I heard that. No, I think he would probably stop and be like, all right, nope, we're not. I'm going to start this over. Can we
try that again, please? Yeah. Like, I mean, you.
There, he would say something about that for sure, as he should. But specifically Ryan Day in Michigan, because he's
right, because he's been owned by them. Yeah.
At least Texas A&M last year. So
yeah, okay. Hey, one thing on Nebraska that we should stick into this show. Nebraska announced on Tuesday that it's going to have Fan Day on Saturday, August 2nd. So this is the first Saturday of preseason camp. They've gone back and forth with this a little bit in the way that they've handled this event in recent years. Last year, I believe it was when all of the players got to campus around the start of the school year. And the year before, they did it right when camp opened. So this year, a third way to time it after a few days of practice. The first Saturday is going to be Fan Day. So that will take place from 4:30 to 6 p.m. in the Hawks. And then they're going to have a practice that's open to fans. And they're selling tickets for this. Whoa. This is like an 1890 thing. So I'm just reading the email here. It starts at 6:30 p.m. in the stadium. You can get tickets for $20 for adults, high school and under $10. And you can sit in the West Club and watch practice on the first Saturday of preseason camp for the low price of $30. It says, okay, gates open at 5:30, Saturday evening practice. Yeah, this is going to be interesting, right?
Yeah, a little steep in terms of the price, but
right.
Not. I'm not going to pay $20 to go to a practice, but some people are, because some people feel as if they've been called on by Nebraska to help. You know, this all goes to the player procurement fund and all those things.
You can provide them with NIL funds. Yes.
Little steep in that regard, but you know what? This is an opportunity for Husker Nation to come together and help out the program. So there you go. Fan Day, August 2nd.
Since we're doing predictions, since we're predicting things today, like Demetrius Bell's impact on the Nebraska offense, what do you envision as the attendance at that event?
2,000 people.
Oh, okay.
Is that low?
Yeah, see, I mean, it seems really low to me, but like I way overestimated the Husker games. I thought people would attend the Husker games in similar numbers that they did spring games in previous years, because to me, the spring game provided almost nothing after the first series or two when you went to try to assess the team that was coming the next year. So I didn't think the Husker games were all that much different, and it was a little bit of fun. So I said, 30,000, 25, 30,000. And then what was it, like 6, 7,000?
Right.
It was very sparse. It looked like the Class C1 state championship in November. So I'm tempted to like think low on this, but we're also now to the point in the year, it's August when this thing is going. Like you're less than 4 weeks. Well, it's Saturday. Yeah, you're less than 4 weeks away from the season opener. Like I feel like fans want to see the team, but yeah, the ticket price is gonna deter people from going for sure. Usually this thing would have been like free.
Give me a ballpark. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna say 5,000.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they ran it up. Some of it depends on what kind of day. Is it nice? Is it mega hot? What are they going to do? Is there any attraction or something like that? So we'll see how that looks.
No media competition. That's not going to ever happen again.
That's right. But you did catch that punt. People forget. Last night was Nebraska Day on the 50 days in 50 states in 50 days on Sports Center. I've seen a couple of these.
They got a prime day, the day of the All-Star game.
So I was thinking about that. Did they get the best day or they get the worst day? Because last night was the one night out of like the last 4 that I didn't watch Sports Center because the All-Star game went on until 11.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I didn't watch any of it.
I don't usually watch Sports Center, and I had it on in the afternoon because I was like trying to get primed up for the All-Star game. Me and Zach and I were, and we wanted to see like some All-Star game preview, and our YouTube TV doesn't have the MLB network.
Right.
So we had it on ESPN and we had Sports Center on. First of all, early in the day, I was wondering, I was like, we need to talk about this on the pod on Wednesday. I was wondering why ESPN was sharing these super random Nebraska posts across their social media platforms, like a throwback to volleyball day. Just there it is.
Out of nowhere.
And then there was one from the ESPN college football account about Dylan Raiola and Patrick Mahomes that had the two of them pictured one on top of the other with like just a strange message about how Dylan gets to play in the stadium of
one of his
someone that he
players.
looks up to. Yeah, one of his favorite players. It's just very, I'm like, why is this being posted on July 15th? Well, that was in conjunction. And by the way, that did nothing but create a lot of disdain for Dylan.
Always goes well when you bring up Dylan Raiola and Patrick Mahomes together.
Fans love it. Fans outside of Nebraska, they love it. They love to see the lookalike stuff. But obviously this was somehow a coordinated effort on the part of ESPN to just make Tuesday all about Nebraska, the All-Star game. And the network did SportsCenter host Dave Lloyd. It's kind of cool. They sent him to the state for the Cornhusker State games, and they did like a 5-minute feature on SportsCenter about the Cornhusker State games. Interviewed Jordan Larson. The Nebraska Sports Council was in the spotlight like has never happened before. They showed powerlifting and various other events. Interviewed some participants in the games. That was not what I was expecting to see when I turned on SportsCenter on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it was like the somewhere around 20th state they've done so far. So they're moving throughout the rest of them. And then they, at the end, if I'm not mistaken, they do like a top 10, like a normal SportsCenter top 10. And I don't know what the baseline for it is. I don't know is it like plays ever or what is it?
I only saw 3. So the clip that I saw, maybe it was an abbreviated version, but so top moments in Nebraska, like sports history, I suppose. They showed, again, volleyball day in Nebraska. They showed Whit Merrifield's walk-off for South Carolina in the final College World Series game ever at Rosenblatt in 2010. And then they showed Scott Frost and Matt Davison on the famous kicked pass
so
against
random.
Missouri in 1997. That occurred out of the state of Nebraska. Maybe I'm being too literal with this. It was a moment for Nebraska. It didn't happen in Nebraska. It happened in Columbia, Missouri. But if you're going to go there, then why aren't you showing Corey Schlesinger up the middle to beat Miami in the 95 Orange Bowl? Like why aren't you showing Tommy Frazier racing down the sideline at Sun Devil Stadium against Florida? There are other things, but the game of the century. I mean, why are you not showing Johnny Rodgers in the punt return? I don't know. But thank you, ESPN, for coming and showcasing our state for a day.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of, obviously, the walk-off for South Carolina in the 2010 College World Series. I mean, that was really cool, but there was another more notable College World Series walk-off that they chose not to show. So, probably moved through it a little bit quick. I don't know what day. I know yesterday, the day before Nebraska was Oklahoma. I don't know what the day today is. We'll see what kind of treatment they get.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, ESPN. And thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. You can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.